Time. That is right. That's what we're doing today. We have a lot of good energy. For a long time, I was told, hey Spud, there's this lady who says and speaks a lot of the stuff that we're about. And I've seen the trademark shade, the frames, and the silky, spunky branding. That's branding at its finest, y'all. If y'all don't know, that's branding at its finest right there. And when Miss Jackson was like, hey, this, I came across and I said, oh, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. Look, everybody already is putting up the fire emojis. Shout out to y'all. So I'm gonna let a few more people come in, but time is money. Time is money. And I can imagine with this individual being a great consultant, they are most definitely about their time, and we're gonna respect that, y'all. So also, if you have any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat. Put it in the chat, and we're gonna go from there. What I'm gonna do right now is, I guess I'm gonna start the show. I see a lot of energy coming in. I see a lot of the artists coming in. We're gonna get right into the show. Before I start, I want to say this individual has over 25 years in radio. Now, that might sound minute to the listener, but 25 years in radio is a big difference because the toilet flushes in the industry about every 5 years. So she's seen a lot of shit. She's heard a lot of shit. And she survived it. And not only survived it, y'all, she is also offering the insights to individuals with her consulting. Now listen to this name. Renegades, Rebels and Rogues, Triple R. That right there just introduced the fight and the plight of everything we stand for as individuals out here. And this person is also an author. I'm very excited, y'all. So I got to slow down, take a breather. But this person, a lifetime. Someone said a lifetime in music years. That is so correct. A lifetime. I love that, DM the most. Shout out to the DM the most. Shout out to everybody coming on. Without further ado, let's bring on the person, the individual. Right now, let's get this squared off. Hold on, I'm gonna take me out the frame. I don't even want to be in the frame. Here we go. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh man, it's an honor. Thank you for having me.
So, for a long time, a lot of people been reposting your information and the stuff that you've been fighting and pushing forward. Before we even go any further, could we get a little background of the Terri Thomas real quick for our viewers that's just jumping on?
Okay. Boston bred, Houston fed. So originally I'm from the East Coast. Went to Emerson College. I'm a bit of a radio prodigy, so I really started when I was 14 years old. And got my third class FCC broadcast license and started on radio at 14. I had a shift after school. And when I was 15, I got my first commercial job offer, but they didn't realize I was a kid. You know, it was like, hey, we need you. And I was like, oh, I'm a kid, you know. But to me, that's when the light went off that maybe this could be a viable career. So, you know, I did all the right things in high school and did the good assignment they always give you when you're in high school. You probably remember this. Go interview somebody that's doing the job that you always wanted to do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I went to Kiss 108 in Boston, which was my favorite radio station. And I was trying to get to Sonny Joe White, who was the program director. But, you know, he was Sonny Joe White and he was not available. But his music director took the time to see me. A wonderful woman by the name of Susan. And she looked at my college, you know, interests where I was applying to school and told me I needed to also apply to Emerson College because they had one of the finest college radio stations in the country. And so I did. I was blessed. I got in and continued radio in college. And, you know, after school, literally 2 months later, I was employed. And so I worked in Columbus, Georgia, Tallahassee, Florida, Cincinnati, Ohio, of course, Houston. I've also done Houston, Charlotte. I've done Houston, Indianapolis, and been a mentor and a consultant in the industry, worked with music artists, worked with business owners who have needed to build their personal brand for the purpose of building their business. And of course, numerous artists in the industry. So just very blessed to do the thing that I always wanted to do. Because people always say, well, what did you want to be when you grow up? You know, are you doing that? And I did it. And then at the end of 2023, you know, after having such a long time in the industry, you know, God was tapping on my shoulder and was like, it's time to do something different. So this is me doing something different and taking all of the years of knowledge and experience and really trying to take that to the next level, in the industry. And so Renegades, Rebels, and Rogues was born, my
I l-
consult. Yeah,
love
and
it.
that's what I do. So here's where we are, and
I
thank you.
love it. I love it. You started out very young. Was it challenging in the transitions in your career? And if so, what were some of the things that you triumphed past?
I mean, I think first of all, youth. Youth is a benefit, I think, because it's great to know what you don't know because you're not coming in with preconceived notions, but you're up against the establishment at all times. And so, I remember my first program director, who I will forever treasure. My first program director in the commercial space was Philip David March, and I would bring him these off the wall ideas, and he would always joke like, "Hey, there's a job opening for you in like some random really tiny marketplace," and he would always joke because I had big ideas. And so, but I will say he was a tremendous supporter. But I would say youth can be a wonderful asset. It could also be a hindrance because on the one hand, you don't know what you don't know, so you don't come in with preconceived notions, but then you kind of get the hard knocks along the way because you have to learn the business. And the business is unforgiving.
Oh
And then on
yes.
top of that, I'll be honest, when I came into the business, women's role in the business was extremely limited. It's still limited now. I was blessed to be part of what we would call the 12% club. And that's 12% of women in the business actually did the job that I did. Even though the target demo for most radio stations is women, there are very few women that get to call the shots. And so I was one of the 12 percenters. And so that would be the other obstacle, is that, we're supposed to super serve our audience, mostly female is the target, yet and still there's very few women that are making those decisions. And you're having to explain yourself to others about how women think because you're a woman, but they seem to think they know how women think, and they're not women. And so it's that. I have no complaints, truly. It's just but those are some of the things that help you become great, because my philosophy has always been there's an opportunity in every obstacle. So we say hardships or challenges, and I'm just sharing them because you asked the question, but I really don't view them in the way most people view an obstacle. I view it as I needed something from the experience. I needed to learn something that was going to help get me to the next level. It was just another tool in the toolbox. And so that was always my perspective with challenges in the industry: how to attack that, how to overcome it, and how to excel. And it's still my philosophy today. We're all going to have tough times, but I always ask, like, okay, what do we need to learn from this? What's missing here? What's the lesson?
Awesome.
Yeah, there's always a blessing in the lesson.
That
There
is
are.
true.
I guarantee it is. It doesn't feel like it sometimes. You're like, why me? Woe's me. But there is always a lesson and a blessing in that. So that's been part of just my philosophy.
It's interesting you mentioned the toolbox. On the show we speak highly about your toolbox and adding your experiences
Mm-hmm.
into your toolbox. So it's most definitely parallel to what we our model. What was the driving force behind you continuing and thriving in that field, which I know for a fact you're being very humble about some of your experiences and some of the roadblocks that were naturally there and put there. But what was the driving force that kept you going?
Two, two forces. One, I came from very humble beginnings, as a lot of us did. Everybody has their own story. I was the first person in my family on both sides to graduate from college. We grew up with, very humble means. And so I had just a deep desire to change the trajectory of my family. And it's not that I didn't come from a family of people that worked hard. My grandfather is first generation Italian American, so I have the signature signing in at Ellis Island, right, from Italy. So um, it was wanting to change the trajectory of my family and setting a new standard. And then the other, honestly, is God.
Hmm.
And I've always felt the presence of God in my life ever since I was small. I can remember the first time I became aware of God in my life. I was maybe 4, and I was on the swing set at my grandmother's house. and I was swinging, and it was a beautiful day, and you could hear the birds and all the good stuff. And it was like I felt a hand pushing me on that swing. And I don't know, there was a comfort in that. And so I would tell you that, you know, I believe that God puts in each one of us special gifts and talents, and they're yours. They're exclusive to you. And that our purpose is to uncover, discover, and refine those special gifts and talents. Because when you do that, you're going to align and operate in your purpose. And we hear the expression purpose driven life, but this has always been my life. And so I had a deep connection and desire to align with my purpose, where I felt my gifts were, so that I could be a servant and do some good and make an impact in an industry that can be really challenging and difficult. And I think music is medicine. It's always been a blessing to be in this business because of what music can do for people, what radio can do for people, what people can do
Do
for
for
people.
people.
And so, those were really the two driving forces, changing the trajectory of my family, and then also giving the utmost honor to God and whatever purpose He had designed for me, and to want to be able to not disappoint on both levels.
Beautiful. That was well said. Very meaningful to many of us that walk this path, not just in music, but this creative lifestyle. Speaking of radio, 25 years in radio.
Well, it was a little more than that, but I
Little
figured
bit
25 is.
over 25, over
Yeah,
25. Let's get it correct. Over 25
it's
years.
cool.
How is the transition from when you started to now in comparison to each other? Radio, parallel, from then and now. What is your good and bads of it?
I was very fortunate to come up under great tutelage in radio. Um, from my own deep personal experience with radio. Because again, humble means, so what did I have? I had a library card and I had a radio. And the library card gave me access to books so I could read. And I would tell you, I'm a super nerd. I am that person that read every biography and autobiography in the school library. That I was that kid. The second part of that is radio. You have access to music because you can just turn on the radio. And while I may not have always been able to afford to go to the record store, get a CD, a cassette, or whatever, I could always turn the radio on. And I knew that music had the ability to shift. It could shift your attitude, your mood. It could amplify your happiness. It could, if you're sad, it could sit there with you and be the shoulder you can lean on. Music just has a gift. It's a gift for people. And then on top of that, you have personalities. I won't call them radio DJs. I'm going to call them personalities. These people that were coming at you through the speaker, who could also change the trajectory of your day. They could make you laugh. They could tell you something you didn't know. You could learn something, just, this connection. And so radio at its best super serves the local community. And that's the type of radio that I experienced. And when I first got into commercial radio, that's the type of radio that I did. I worked for Dave's Broadcasting, which was a small African American owned company based in Columbus, Georgia. And we gutted that out, man. I mean, it was boots on the ground, out in the community, shaking hands, kissing babies, finding ways to serve people. We served each other as a team, and we served each other in the community, assessing where the needs were and how could we help. And, it could be something joyful, like doing something really cool for the community, or it could be, something's going on and we could be the answer or the conduit to help. And so, I continued to work under great people that reinforced that. So, serving the community was paramount. Now, over time, to your question, we see radio, which is really, to me, the people business, losing sight of the people in the
I
business.
agree.
And so that's where the challenge comes in, because you're have less people resources to work with, yet and still radio, as it at its best, super serves that community, the local community. And so when radio starts slipping, it lets other people kind of either pick up the mantle, or people forget about the powerful impact that great radio can have in a local community. So I live in Houston. No shortage of hurricanes that I have experienced by living in Houston. And when the hurricane comes, power is going to go out. You got to get those D batteries,
Mm-hmm.
that radio, and that's what's going to keep you connected. And then, so think about it, in your darkest moments, your most challenging moments, where are you turning? Most people would turn to the radio for that local connection. And so that's been the tough part for me, is to see radio turn away from what I think is the center of what makes it special, which is being in the people business in real time.
In real time. Do you
In real
do you feel social media had a big effect on how the people business of radio has become more of the promotion business of people?
time. You know what? I love that question. I would say this: radio is a content delivery platform. It always has been, right? Go back into history when there was only radio, there was no television. You can go back and you can watch old movies, or you can imagine the scenario where the day is done and we are eating supper and someone turns the radio on. We are gathering around the radio because we're hearing the ball game, or we're hearing a show acted out on radio, or we're hearing live performances of music on radio. Radio then, at the beginning, was a content delivery platform that super served the local community. So radio has always been a content delivery platform. What happened was, boom, here comes the internet. Guess what? That's another content delivery platform. That's what social media is. And so radio at first didn't really wrap its arms around it, much like the music business ran away when Napster came to the table. Like, that's not going to be nothing. And then, here we are in that pickle. That's a conversation we can have later. But so radio, in its own arrogance, did not understand to embrace what was getting ready to happen, bring it into the house. And this is another aspect and avenue for you to be able to super serve the community and expand your brand. And so, because radio fumbled the ball, it allowed other people to get into the space to build and take away attention from what was really there. I did a post recently talking about radio personalities being the original influencer, and how some personalities are losing their footing because they just didn't know how to evolve when the game changed. And you can't be in that same mindset from before. You have to be able to expand your skill sets so that you can continue to serve and build your brand and use all of the tools that you have available. Because at the best, a radio personality is a content creator. So what are you creating in the space, and how are you doing it on air, online, and in the community?
That is true. You you
That's the threat.
you hit it. You hit it on the nose. Now I'm gonna ask a question, and this question is completely perspective. We've
Mm-hmm.
watched the Mr. Ball with CDs. We watched the Mr. Ball with
Yep.
Napster. Even to this day, record labels are missing the ball with streaming platforms. We watched as time go. In your, if things don't change, where do you see the disruption happening next?
I think it's happening now. It's happening now. So, with like things happening like UMG and the complete letting go of all of the people resources, I think that the revolution is now. And I think what is happening now is incredible opportunity. I think the record business is imploding. And what we're going to see is the rise of the phoenix, where it's going to burn down. But this is the opportunity for independence. This is the opportunity for getting back to smaller, boutique, personalized services, real artist development. And I think that's going to be the new model. And I get it, right? So the big three, we're having the big bloodletting here with letting all of our people go, because we're thinking AI is going to be the savior.
Yeah,
AI will not be the
will
savior.
not.
It will not. Will it be a tool? Yes. Will it be a resource? Sure, why not, right? But it's not going to be the savior. AI is not going to know how to handle an artist, the outcast of 2024, for example. AI isn't going to know what to do with an artist who's innovative like that, because they're left of center. AI knows formulas and systems and averages. So I can plug something in and I'm going to give you the average of what that needs to be, the average way that we work it, the average thought process, the best of the average, but it's the average.
Yeah,
It's not going to know how to take what's unique and different and amplify that. It's just not, because it's a computer generated program,
program.
and imperfect, as people are imperfect. But at least when people are imperfect, we can go against the grain and go against our gut. AI doesn't have that,
No, does not. It cannot
right?
do. It cannot do this.
No, it can't.
It
I
cannot do.
mean, there's artists, uh, you know, there's artists. I'll tell you the truth. Um, Yesterday, I took a meeting, and I was listening to some music from an artist, and I was taking a meeting with his manager. And I will tell you, it was the first day since I left the building in radio at the end of last year where I was like, doggone it, I wish I was in the building, because I wanted to run in the studio and say, play this now, and then play it again and play it again. And let's get the artist up here. Let's get him on the air. Let's get some social media interviews happening, and let's put this record in, because I can see where this artist can be, and this song is great, and he's finally to a place where I think, if the stars align, he's going to get there. And I there's no greater joy than hearing it and being able to be a conduit to it
Hmm.
coming to its fullest manifestation. So I think, again, we're in a time where it's going to be the rise of the phoenix. This is the time for independence. This is the time to bring back true artist development. Now there's going to be a lot of crap out here. You can't,
You can't
but
avoid
you
that.
already know.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't avoid it,
Can't
right?
avoid that.
Because technology brings a lot of access. Access brings opportunity, but everybody's not cut out to be great. They're not willing to do the work, or something's not quite there on the talent, or whatever it is, something is missing. But for those that want to be great and really want to commit, this is an incredible time to be in the music business.
I hope everyone out there listening, this is most definitely a beautiful time. Speaking on artists, I know you come across talents of all like, and I kind of know the answer to this, but there is a you said work hard. You mentioned putting the work in, and when it comes to artists, what you feel is the lack in, I don't want to say majority, but in many artists missing the ball. What is going on?
Well, that's a layered answer, because I have a list of things that I think that are preventing people from reaching their success. One is because there are so many distractions with all of the platforms and everything else that's vying for our attention. We don't have patience when it comes to sticking with the project. So this is just the science of consumerism. People used to say, when it came to radio, for example, why y'all play the same song over and over? Well, because I'm looking at all the data that says that's still people's favorite song, and they're not tired of it. And radio is a repetition meet. It's repetition, that gets to be the earworm. So I find, one, oftentimes people give up too quickly on a project. The other thing that I would tell you is that they have not yet embraced who they really are. And so we tend to put on a persona of what we think the game wants, instead of being introspective and saying, what is it about me that is unique and different, that I may even be afraid to let that out, because people are going to think it's corny, or whatever the word is, right? So instead of being who I really am, I create this persona out here that's the same as. One of the worst phrases that you can say to a radio program director is this: oh, yeah, this is my new artist. This is my version of Meg the Stallion. This is my version of J. Cole. This is my version of Bon Jovi. This is my version of the Rolling Stones. This is my version of Dave Brubeck. Whatever it's going to be, that's the worst. Because if you're bringing me your version of someone else, then you're not bringing me a true artist.
Yeah, most definite. And
So that's a big
it's
issue.
it's not the investment in you. You're using the plight of someone else. Most
Yeah.
most definitely. We got a lot of artists on. There was one question, and I wasn't gonna jump, but he asked this question early just to segue into artists, and he
Okay.
mentioned touring. He mentioned touring,
Oh,
and he said, "Is it best to start touring?" Let me read exactly what he said. He said, "Is it best to start touring in state or out of state first?"
all right. Take a note. So here's the first thing I want you to do. you're already on the streaming platforms. So you should have the artist back end information that's going to give you your data. And if not, whoever you're distributing through, you need to get with them, but you need the data. First thing I always do is this: go into the data of the platforms that your music is on. Whatever the song or most recent music, where are you getting the most traction? Give me your top 10 cities. If they're in the US, then the answer is the US. If they're overseas, the answer is overseas. No artist, none, is hot at the exact same time. That is a rarity. Like, okay, maybe I'll say Beyonce, Taylor Swift, we're in this moment, but that's really rare. An artist drops music and there will be pockets where people are like, oh, okay. And it could be because however they're discovering it, whether you've got an advocate in the marketplace who's helping you get some exposure, like a DJ or whatever, or they just happen to find you. But look at your analytics, see where your music is popping, and then plan your touring strategically to that. So if you can focus on, say, those top 10 cities, and you can tour there, and you can make strategic partnerships in the market. So like, who's the hot local artist in that market? Is there a way to bring that artist out on your show, right? Let's build some strategic partnerships and alliances. Let's do some geo-targeted ads in those markets where you're getting traction. See what artists are already touring the marketplace, see when those shows are, buy some ads around their venues. So because you already know what everybody's doing at the concert, right? Everybody's here with the phone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm on the phone, so I'm gonna see your ad. Oh, well, who's that? Make a good ad, but I'm gonna see you. So I would focus on 10 markets, the top 10, and I would start there. And if you could imagine a map, let's say your top 10 markets happen to be in the United States. And if you imagine a map and you put those, just put it on the wall, man, and just get some thumbtacks, super old school, and put those dots there and give some love into those markets where you've got a spark. Blow on that market, right? Put some attention, some energy, get there, make some alliances, go around the city, meet people, super old school, super grassroots. But if you do that in that top 10, that little spark is going to grow, and you're going to start to get some oxygen to that. And you're going to watch that little one city, now you're going to see that start to radiate out. That traction is going to start to radiate out from there, because maybe you come to Houston because you see you're getting some traction here, so you love on Houston a lot, right? And then you're saying, okay, well, we got some real energy here. Maybe we can take the 2 hours, 2.5 hours down to San Antonio. Maybe we can go over to Austin, but find your top 10 and love on them first.
I love that. C-Mac, I hope you took notes. I'm really glad that you asked that question, and a lot of things that you expressed about analytics here on the A&R Desk. We stress it. We even have a segment where we pull up people's analytics and the importance. And speaking on analytics and Miss Media Group, we're gonna get to that question. But before we go, speaking of analytics, uh, how how much have you seen consulting that this has been probably I want to say detrimental to an artist not engaging in their analytics?
I think it's a mistake. Now, I will say this: I find a lot of artists just don't know. That's part of the passion that drives what I'm doing, with my content that I'm giving away for free, is because I understand that you don't know what you don't know. So it is a mistake. You got to learn how to read it and realize that analytics are tools. It's a tool. It's breadcrumbs. It's, you take a look at it, you take the information, you want to see consistent information, because sometimes we read analytics wrong. We'll see something today, like boom, little bit of a spike, and then it's not there next week. I like to see consistency with my analytics. So if I'm getting a buzz in a market, I want to see that buzz this week. I want to see it next week. I want to see it the week after. I want to see a little bit of consistency, because you can bebop around with knee-jerk reactions if you're not looking at trends. But I think you need to understand what's really happening with your buzz. And I think that most artists are operating under limited resources. So for me, with artists, I understand it's expensive to play the game, but you can maximize what you can do with some sweat equity and elbow grease by looking at analytics, by doing a lot on the social spaces, by creating fan communities, real fan communities. I tell people, yeah, we want to see you hit that follow button, But as an artist, you got to lead them somewhere. And if you're having them hit the follow button, but you're not leading them off the platform to something you own, a database that you own with names and email addresses, you're missing the boat. Because if Instagram goes down or TikTok or whatever the platform is
What's
that
there?
you're getting the most love, like there goes your fan base, you can't communicate. So I think you got to really understand that music is a business and it's art and science. We love the art because that's where creatives want to spend the most time, but that science and strategy is essential for you being able to grow.
I love that. I love that. There's a question of how do you identify a core fan base from
Mhm.
social media?
You got to ask. I think one, you got to engage and you got to ask. And so that's another essential component to me about leading people off the platform. So, how, what can you do? Well, I'll tell you what you can do. I ain't even going to ask. So, let's say, Spud, you're an artist and you're doing a good job, you're building your following here in the social space. So you set up like a little email. You could use ConvertKit, Kajabi, you could use Constant Contact, whatever. So you say, all right, my people here on Instagram, I'm going to give you an exclusive sneak preview to my new single before anybody else. Just click this link. The link takes me to a landing page. The landing page, I enter my name, maybe my email. I could give a little demographic information. It's whatever you set up. But boom, I'm in your database. Now you're sending me emails. You're sending me that exclusive. You're giving me the track. Then next week, you're giving me a personalized message just for the fans. You give me a behind the scenes look at something you've been working on. Maybe there's a special T-shirt and you're going to give your fans the chance to get it at 50% off. Maybe you're taking a trip with your family and you're saying like, look, I'm gonna take y'all along for the ride. And in that email, you're sending out some exclusive content that's fans only, right? You gotta love on the people. But if you ask them, they will tell you. So then you can go ahead once you build that relationship. Well, now I can ask you how old you are. Now I can ask you where you're from. Now I can ask you to check in and rep your city. I mean, there's things that you can do, but you have to build a relationship and a real connection. Um, Fans will tell you. I find a lot of artists, we get excited when we see the numbers running up on the follow, but we're not spending any time building relationship with these
Not
people.
at all. I
Even
agree.
even in the basic of the social space, even alone, you know, you're posting. We're here with selfies and we look sexy, we look hot, and we're like, buy my single, do this, do that. We're telling you what to do, but we don't spend any time loving on you.
Yeah.
We don't go live and say, I'm gonna click in 3 fans right now. Who's here? Who's in the chat? You know, we don't do that. So that's a challenge,
That's a
a
challenge.
big challenge.
Another question. Another question, which was really interesting by Titus. He said, if there's one thing you can change about the music industry in the digital era, what would it be?
Change. That's a really good question.
Yeah, I saw that one. I was like, that's interesting.
I don't know necessarily. I think we're still trying to understand what this digital era really means. Um, we just saw what happened with UMG and TikTok. They had pulled everything off the platform for 3 months. Now they're back. And, we could say it's about, publishing and royalties and all of that. And I'm not saying it's not. I don't want to discount artists being able to get paid. But I think there also the reality is that TikTok has become like this huge promotional platform. It's like free marketing. Your record catches fire, man, and people are sharing that at no charge. Like there's no better marketing than word of mouth. So I don't know what I would change yet because I think we're really still trying to understand the psychology behind how things are working in that particular space.
I respect that. I respect that completely. That's a really good. I mean, as I read it, I'm here thinking, what would I change? Because I'm always talking about change. It's like, well, what would I change? That's a really good one. Let's talk about your consulting firm a little bit. I want to give some identity to what you do. When you're going into working with a client, is there a particular structured base that you follow before you pick a client?
I mean, I think that one, do their needs align with your talents? And I think you got to know where your superpowers are, and I know where what my superpowers are. So if I'm working, or if someone is interested in working together, one, I mean, like the business got to be handled right. I mean, because I happy to do a lot of free game on Instagram, but my kids need to eat. The mortgage needs to get paid. So, can you afford to do the business? Um, is there good alignment between your needs and my talent? And, do I think I could really be of service to you? And if I think it's not a good match, um, and that's okay. I would just say, you pass on that, because I may not be the right person for you. Now, I know a lot of people in the business. Maybe I'm not the right person, but I know someone who is. Or maybe you're just not ready for the next level that this consulting would require. And then I'll give you some good nuggets to think about and maybe work on, and then let's revisit that at a later time. So I think you have to assess the needs and make sure it's a good fit for your talents. It has to be something I believe in. Belief has always been, as you could tell, it's been cornerstone to my success. It's a deep faith and belief in God. But I have to believe. I have to believe in what you're doing, what you're trying to do, and that you're coachable. It's nothing is more frustrating than giving somebody, the blueprint to success, and they're just not coachable. Well, you don't need me if you just want to continue to do the same thing that you've been doing that hasn't gotten you anywhere. So you really got to be coachable. And I always tell people, let's date. We don't need to get married. Short-term agreements, 90 days. Let's see how it goes. Let's set a little bit of an action plan, and then let's see how that 90 days goes, and then we can revisit at that time, because I want to make sure that, hey, if you're going to say my name, that you could say, you know what, that was worthwhile. I really learned a lot. I was able to figure some things out. I was able to make progress. And so I like to date before we get married. I mean, not to say there couldn't be a long-term arrangement with somebody, but I think at first, you're just trying to try each other out on for size and make sure it's a good fit.
I respect that. Yeah, you reiterated a lot of the conversations that we have, and a lot of people are putting yes, that's a fact. So we're getting a lot of that energy. The name of your consulting firm. Let's talk about that. I love the name. It makes me want to put on like a Spartan clothes and
Mm-hmm.
march down to my music playing and artists around me. Let's talk about that.
So the name Renegades, Rebels, and Rogues, I give all credit to my husband Tim. So I was telling him, this is actually a couple years ago, and I said, I really have plans for what I want to do in the content space, and I need an umbrella that really speaks to the attitude that I've approached my career, the attitude that I approach projects, the attitude that I go into finding the people, or finding the magic in people. And he's like, okay, I get it, kind of like a renegade, a rebel, a rogue. And I said, stop. I literally, we were in the car, and I was like, stop. And he's like, what's happening? I was like, that's it. And he said, renegade, rebels, and rogues. And I said, well, that embodies the spirit of how I've always operated in my career. It's paving the road less traveled. It's embracing what's left of center, if you will. A little bit different, a different approach, being disruptive. Um, it's not a cookie cutter. It's not a one size fits all. And I want to work with people that embody that I could see something in a person, in an artist, or in a brand, and I'm like, that's it right there. That's the magic, that's the unique, that's the different, that's the thing. And let's put that thing under the microscope. Let's build that as the cornerstone of your brand, and watch you stand out and really grow, into the space. And so that really just, it's the superhero. We're a superhero family. I've got 4 kids, my husband, we got a whole room in our house that is all Marvel memorabilia, all that. So, it's the superhero
See,
mentality. Perfectly imperfectly people that are extremely gifted and special. And it's bringing out the special, but still giving us permission to be perfectly imperfect.
I love it. That I love it. I love it. I love it. Um, when consulting,
Mm-hmm.
if artists wanted to reach out to you, how can they do that?
I mean, we're on IG, so just hit me in the DM. I really do respond to people. I respond with intentionality. If I've got something that's going viral in the moment, may take me, a little bit longer than, a couple hours to get back to you. But, usually within, 24, 48 hours, I can hit people back. But I would say just hit me there. It's just real easy. And I'm very responsive there.
Gotcha. Now my question is really not for the people. My question is really towards you. If you had the chance to look at the younger you, you said you was 15. How old you were when you got into radio?
14, baby.
14. If
14.
if you could look back and be like, let me talk to you, the 14-year-old you, what would you say now?
I would say, well, you don't know what you don't know. I was incredibly book smart, but was not very street smart. So I definitely, I got my noggin beat a few times. I mean, I do think some basic advice about, like money and finances. Just saving your money, investing for the future. Radio doesn't pay great now. It certainly didn't pay great then. My first salary, true story, $11,800. So you got to figure out how to do a lot with a little. Um, but I would just say, I don't. I've never lived a life in regret, because I feel like every experience I had shaped me and prepared me for what God had next. So I would just say, I don't know, I would say this: I have waited to focus on really building my personal brand. I was very content to be in the background. And it's not like I'm saying, hey, look at me now. I am in the space because I believe I have opportunity to serve, and by the grace of God can feed my family at the same time. But I would say that in this day and age, you must build out your personal brands. And you must do that in a way, if you're in radio or in a particular career, do that in a way that certainly complements what's paying the bills, right? But also set yourself up for what's next down the road. Because when you work for a corporation, we all serve at the pleasure of the president. And that day may come where they make a different decision. But if you've really built out your personal brand and be conscientious and aware of other streams of opportunity, then if that day happens, then you're well prepared for what's next. So I would say, girl, you're out here building everybody else's brand, but you need to build yours too.
I see that. I see that. I see that. We had a question. Someone questioned me, DM me earlier in the day, saying they wouldn't be on the show. So I told them that I would ask the question, and they said, "What advice would you give to an individual who loves what they do, but life hardships keep me binded? How can I overcome?"
I mean, life is a series of choices and decisions. So I don't know what those hardships are, and I don't know what the goal is. So it's tough for me to make an assessment. Um, but if God put it in your heart, and you really believe there's really something you're supposed to be doing, He's gonna make a way. You just need to have a plan. Um, Sometimes, and I'm not saying that's the case here. Again, I don't have the blessing of the fullness of what the scenario is, but sometimes, we want to be the artist, but we don't want to work the job that allows us to be the artist. So when I started in radio, my salary was $11,800. Well, who's living off that? Even in Columbus, Georgia, nobody. So I worked two jobs for 7 years, and it's very humbling to be the checkout girl at Walmart checking somebody's groceries, and they're like, "Hey, you sound like that girl on the radio." And I'm like, "Well, I am that girl on the radio." And they would look at you and be so shocked and be like, "Well, what are you doing here?" Because again, to me, radio talent were the original influencers. So as a talent, you would be held in the highest of esteem by the community, and they would be like, "Well, what you doing?" And it's like, well, working this job allows me to work that other job, which is where my dream is. And so I continued to do that. And so, you know, I would say where there is a will, there is a way. It's just trying to figure that out. And a lot of times, I know that you want it now, but what can get you there is a little bit of consistency every day. It's a consistent daily effort into pursuing that dream. Sometimes we just want to go all in. So we're all in the moment, but then like 2 weeks from now, like we're not being consistent with the good things that we need to do to build the brand. And so decide what you can contribute to the game and contribute that every day,
every
consistent,
day.
every day.
C Mac, he asked about the tour. She did answer the tour situation. I'm gonna post this up again. Thank you. Oh, we got Ty. Ty said Ty said we need to get the two of y'all on the same show more often. Thank you, my brother.
Oh, man,
Thank you, my brother.
huge
Um,
compliment.
Miss Jackson said, "How has social media contact changed your life?"
I mean, well, how has it changed my life? I mean, I saw what was coming in radio. I was one of the voices that said we better get in the space before we get got. So to me, I saw the wave. So in terms of the change, I would say, again, radio to me didn't embrace it quick enough. So now they're playing catch up. Um, but now we're living in a post it. You gotta. I like. Here's one of my expressions: make the memories, capture the moments. Now we're very much in a capture the moment. But I think you have to take everything with a grain of salt. And I tell this to my kids. And I'll be honest, we limit, my kids, well, with the exception of one daughter, um, social media, we're not for it for the kids. We're not. I don't want you sitting here measuring yourself to somebody else's highlight reel. Got 40 filters on, this highlight reel of everybody's life. A lot of what we're seeing in social is the highlight reel, and that's great because you want to share what's happy and joyful, but you're only seeing one side of the story. So I think, for social media, you just got to keep things in perspective and decide how you're going to consume it, what you're going to contribute to it, and just like I said, keep things in perspective and stay balanced.
I love that. You heard that? Somebody said social media is fake. I see you. I see you. English, most
It's the
definitely.
highlight reel. It's the highlight.
It's a high. It most definitely is a highlight reel, and highlight reel can make any day look marvelous, right? Any day look
Yeah.
marvelous.
Well,
Um.
flip side, I will say this, Spud. There's a lot of thumb thugs out there, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
miserable and unhappy with my personal existence, so I'm going to search social media to find out somebody who even looks a little bit happy, and I'm going to do everything I can to tear that person down. I mean, it could be very detrimental. That's why, like, we're not really co-signing it for the kids. Because of that, I just don't want those extra influences. It's tough enough to be out here building self-esteem in this world without having that barrage of negativity. But there's a lot of, you have some cat got nothing better to do but sitting here eat potato chips, figuring out who they can crack on next, tear down next. There's a lot of that out there, and you got to know how to block that. You get the hater blockers, man. You got to get some.
You got it. Most definitely got to get them. You mentioned a very interesting thing about they said the thumb thugs. They're laughing at the thumb thugs.
Some thugs.
They laughing. They having a ball with that. Not only within that, there are a lot of people who put out content that is mentally draining,
Yes.
and you mentioned blockers, like putting on your blockers, and that is a phrase we use, but how important is the balance? And if you have any advice for artists and how to balance, or even how you balance, how could you share that?
Unfollow, man. That unfollow and that block button is righteous. um, the algorithm will feed you what interests you. So, if you're getting a lot of that negative energy, you got to ask yourself, well, what are you following? Like, what are you consuming? And then make a conscious decision not to consume it. So, um, decide. I mean, it can be a wonderful tool and a resource. Like, I can get joy when I open up my feed in the morning and I've got somebody telling me something positive about, positive about money and how to help my family, or something positive about parenting, or something dope about an artist, or something helpful about the business, or, the news. I will say I'll get some news. Of course, you can get the news there. But I think you have to decide what you want to consume, and you've got to be the gatekeeper of your own mind. And if you find that you're getting a lot of this, and you're reading, you're doing this, and you start to feel like you need a shower, and your spirit is low, and you're like, man, this is just, I feel icky, then you really got to step back and say, well, what am I looking at, and who do I not need to be looking at anymore? And it may be people that you may need to put those folks on pause, because it's just not good for your spirit. So what comes in is what, what comes in is what's going to go out. It's like somebody that just eats a bunch of garlic every day. They get hot and sweaty, they're going to smell like garlic, man. You eating all this garlic, and so your skin is going to exude garlic. What goes in is going to come out. And so if you find that the balance is off, let's hit that unfollow button. Let's look for something on there that has a lot more positive energy. Let me use this as an example. You'll find some celebrities, some of the big ones. You'll look at their social media, and they got either they're not following anybody, or maybe they're following like their husband or their manager. They're very small, very few list of people that they follow, because they know there's a lot of that coming at them, and so they choose not to follow things that aren't feeding them in a positive way.
Yeah, that you hit it. That's so true. That's so true. And everybody on here is agreeing, saying they hit the block button and restrict. You gotta most definitely protect your energy, and like you said, be careful what you're consuming. That's you're allowing to come in, because it does feed you through algorithm. Depending
Mm-hmm.
on what it sees, you're gearing more towards at. Now, one of my last questions is, we speak highly of marketing on social media. I come from an old school guerrilla marketing technique. I love hitting the streets with stickers, and my face is all over the place. I spray paint it everywhere. Like, that's that. I love it. I do it everywhere. How important is not getting stuck on social media to the artistry, whatever kind of artist or talent you are? How important is that?
Well, I mean, one, I will agree with you, Spud. Everything is marketing, everything. So take it back to the radio convo that we had earlier, when you say a radio station needs to be a force on air, online, and in the community. The same thing goes for an artist. So, a lot of artists to me fail on the hand to hand combat side of things, right? If all you can do is be nimble in this space, you know, you're socially awkward, or potentially socially awkward in public. Well, that's not going to serve you very well. So I think it's all three spaces. You got to make quality product, right? That's going to emotionally connect with people. But then you've got to really connect with people. And that's here, because you got to do it. I have an artist now, does not want to do it. Kid's talented. It's really struggling in the social space. Why can't I just make music? Well, baby, this is where your marketing happens. You can get people that will follow you. That is free marketing, my friend. If they feel connected to you, they're going to share your music. They're going to tell people how great you were at the concert. They're going to be there. They're going to put you on their phone. They're going to share that. It's going to be amazing for you. But you got to find a way to get comfortable in the space. Same thing goes for that in-person hand-to-hand combat. You can't go into the club, put the dark glasses on, sit in the corner with your homies, and just sit in a dark corner and feel like you were out. You weren't anywhere. You didn't meet anybody. You didn't make anybody feel special. Remember this: if you're an artist, I want you to write this down. Make your fan feel like the VIP, and they will always make you a star.
I hope everybody's taking notes out there. I hope everyone's taking, because we got tons of artists in here. I hope you're taking notes. We speak about the social engagement. I have this saying where I say having someone's information is not networking. That's just a contact. You got you
That's
gotta engage. You gotta engage and make it personal.
You have to make it personal, and you've got to figure out what aspects of who you really are that you're willing to share in the social spaces. There's a way to do that without feeling like you're giving everything away, but you got to give people something, because it's the humanity that connects people. Like, music is medicine. So if I'm consuming your music, it's because it's representing something for me, right? So music has the incredible ability to say what I can't say for myself, or allow me to experience something that I can't experience for myself. I'm living vicariously through your art. And as the artist, the world has changed. It has. There was a time where there was no social media, and you might have the occasional, interview like on TV, or you might get on, MTV or BET, and you'd see a little bit of an artist there, but there was no social media. So all the artists had was music, and definitely that hand to hand combat, shaking every hand, meeting every fan, making people feel incredible. Like Cardi B, man, coming up, she was no better person than that. How she would just fight, much to the detriment of her management sometimes, is trying to move her around. Cardi B, but she's like, no, the people, the people. Or look at somebody like Dwayne The Rock Johnson, one of my favorites, how he loves on people. And you can tell it's not fake, man. This guy really cares. Now, sure, is there a machine making things look right?
Of
Yeah, I
course,
get it.
yeah.
But this guy, you hear about this man, he's a great person. He really cares for people and he showcases his humanity. And so, truthfully, I don't know if you know this, Spud, but of the personality, because Rock's a pretty, he's a grown up, right? So, but for young people, he's their number one, man. He's one of their top personalities for younger people,
Yeah.
is Dwayne Rock Johnson.
Most
And
even you could tell after all these years when they brought him back just recently, they knew what they were doing. It
they
brings
did,
they knew what they doing. They knew.
they did. Hey, man, we're going to see Moana, the live action, in this house. We're going to be front and center. So, but anyway, there are people in the business that their longevity gets to be extended because of how they make their fans feel. And when you can make your fan feel magical, that's something they never forget. And they will forever be an advocate of you. They will tell everybody about your new project. They'll buy your merch. They'll buy tickets to your shows. If you break out and do movies, they're going to do that. If you break out and do a podcast, they're going to consume it. Whatever it is that you want to do, like building these relationships with your fans so that they want to champion your cause, man, that's everything. Think about some of the legacy acts. Think about my man Frankie Beverly, who's like retiring now. His voice has not been there for
Years.
many years. God bless him. But he would hit that road and his fans would buy those tickets. And his fans knew the voice man is not there. But they would be happy to sit there while Frankie would hold the microphone, like he would do his best and he'd do this and the fans would have his back. They were paying their own money to go sing along with Maze to
Mm-hmm.
Frankie Beverly songs. And they would do it over and over and over, buying tickets, buying merch, and they would show up every time. They haven't had a new record out in decades. That is based on the emotional connection that fans have with your music and the relationship that the fans feel that they have with you as an artist. That takes you, that feeds you, that sustains you when there's no hit record on the radio.
That's so true. That's so true. So there's a few more questions, but what I want to do now is I want to narrow it back down to you. Like I mentioned earlier, between the radio, years of radio and consulting, we also have an author in front of us. An author. And J Mac is freestyle king. Could we talk a little bit
Oh,
about this?
all right. Let me say, I mentioned earlier that a library card and a radio, like those are the cornerstones of my youth. So I have always been a good writer, in school. I just had a gift to write and guess to talk. So the two things. But I had an idea that I wanted to write a children's book. And so at 97.9 The Box, there's a personality by the name of J Mac. J Mac Worldwide is his Instagram. And he's an incredible human being and an incredible personality. And he's just very unique. And so I had an idea, and I'm going to tell you, it came from God because nowhere else. But God, whoop, gives me this story and says, you know what, go write a children's book, make it rhyme, and write it about J Mac. It's loosely based on a story that I made up about J Mac and his close friends. But the book, the characters are J Mac and his close friends. And so I wrote this story, and I went to J Mac and I said, I'm going to ask you something real crazy. Because keep in mind, I'm his boss, right? So I'm like, it's going to sound real crazy, Mac. But I have an idea for a children's book. And if you'll allow me, I would like to write a book and make you the main character. And, Mac has always equally been an advocate for me. We both share a deep love of reading. In fact, at the time, we were reading a book. If you have not read this book, it can change your life. It's called The Alchemist.
That's my favorite. I got it right here. That's my
I've got it.
favorite book. I got
It's
highlighted pages and turned
man,
over.
what you talking
That,
about?
yes.
I keep copies and I hand them out to people if I think that you're ready for the message in the book. So we were both reading The Alchemist, and he says it's like The Alchemist, like God put something on your heart and you're going to do it. And so I wrote, the story was done in like really written in a day, and I edited it over a couple weeks, and then I found an illustrator and did all that, and I self-published. And I wrote J Mac is the Freestyle King. And it was a passion project. Dr. Seuss, truthfully, is my favorite author. Um, and I love kids, and I know what reading can do for kids. There's no better exercise, nothing out here that equals reading to exercise the imagination of a child. There just isn't. There's nothing else. No videos, no blue, and I love Bluey. No Bluey, no Sesame Street. You know, reading. If you can get a child to read, man, and reading made me smart. It did. I will tell you, reading is what cultivated this brain and made me smart. So I just wanted to do it. And Matt co-signed it, and I wrote the book, and I got it illustrated, and I was able to put it out. And my publisher went belly up during COVID, but it did get out there, and it was out in space for, several years and all that. But definitely a passion project.
And the new kid?
Well, that came in the same time. And so that story was inspired by seeing children that felt that they weren't good enough, so they had to barter for friendship. And we all have known a child like this who might be this kid who's like, well, I'll give you my cookies if you play with me, or I'll give you my ball if you play with me. Kids that just don't have the confidence to understand that they're enough for whatever the reason. This story is based around a child who's been a military child. So the child, the parents have had to move with frequency. So he never really gets to establish friendships that stay long term. And so he moves to the new town and he starts bartering with people, so they'll spend time with him because he's lonely and he's a kid and he's just trying to connect with people. And then it comes along where there's one character in the book and he's hearing about this kid who's giving away all these goodies. He's like, this doesn't make any sense. Why is this kid giving away all this stuff? So he goes to investigate, and the kid is like, I don't have anything else to give you for you to spend time with me. And the main character says, well, you don't have to give me anything. Here's my skateboard. Let's go to the park. And so it's basically highlights the fact that we want to teach our kids to be gracious and to be welcoming to the new kids, and giving them a chance to be a part of the group without them feeling like they have to pay their way into it.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Touching the generations, all age groups, giving a message. You are a blessing to many. There are a lot of people in here saying this was a dope night, that they really love this. I want to just take this time. We're in the era of giving out flowers, and what we like to do is give you your honor, because flowers do die and honor lasts forever. So I want to thank you for all the things you do. Could we get a round of applause? I want to thank you for all you do, all the information that you share on social media. I know the many consulting nights that where pro bono starts off with, I got a question, and then you just gave them the whole game plan. I know for a fact, I could tell by the energy. So we all want to thank you for that, and please keep doing. We don't have to tell you about that. You've been renegading, rebelling, and roguing through your journey. So continue. Thank you. Before you go, if there's any last words, how people could reach you, or anything you want to share with the people, please, the floor is yours.
I would say, if there was a question that you wanted to ask but it didn't get answered, just hit me in the DM at Terri Thomas. It should be up here. Just hit me and I will answer your question, because I want to make sure that, hey, you're spending your time with Spud and I and the crew tonight. I want to make sure that you know that your time is valuable by us as well. So I definitely want to answer any questions if you have them. So just DM them to me.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you again. Everyone is saying thank you. We're getting the medals, claps, hands, everything. Thank you so much. This was a beautiful night. Again, Triumph. We got our eyes and we're watching. We're watching. So thank you again. You have a beautiful night. Thank you for being on the A&R Desk one more time. One more time, everybody. Thank you. And thank you to the viewers who spent this time sitting with us, taking it in, soaking it in, sharing. There is no content, no conversing without all this. So thank everyone who was there. This is what we love to do here on the show. Thank you again. You have a blessed one. From our viewers' requests, they're like, we got to do this again. We got to do this again. Maybe we can have a topic. Maybe, you know what? I'm going to challenge you viewers. DM me some topics of something we could discuss and narrow down to a segment, and maybe we could have her come on again and just talk about this. We ain't gonna take up too much time because she gave a lot of free game, y'all. She gave a lot of free game.
Thank you.
But maybe we could do that.
I would be honored. And before we go, I do want to say to you, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for your commitment and your willingness to get out here and to illuminate the space and illuminate the path for people. Because I really do. There's a lot of information out here, and some of it's good, some of it's not good. And I really believe that you're doing this because you have a heart to be able to illuminate the path to help people get to that next level. So kudos to you and your team for being a blessing to the space.
Thank you. If there wasn't this, I don't know what I would be doing. Like I can't see nothing else. I would go insane. Yeah. But thank you again. You have a blessed night. I know your family's waiting for you. You have a blessed night and a great day. Thank you again, everybody. This was Terri Thomas. We gotta do one more time. You have a good night. Everybody, that was super cool. I want to shout out everybody that jumped on today. I tried to get to every question. If I didn't get to your questions, please forgive me, but I tried to get to every question. Shout out to F and Genius. Shout out to Miss Jackson Media Group. Shout out to Thomas English. Shout out to everybody. You saw and you heard a lot of things that were parallel to the conversations we have. And I wanted to bring this person on because sometimes hearing it from the root sounds like a preach, or it sounds redundant. And sometimes you need a fresh sound, you need a fresh vibration, you need and what better way to do it with someone who speaks from a core and, as you can see, passionate place and a truthful place for the creatives. So shout out, thank you Berg. He said shout out to Spud. Thank you all. As you know, I end the night with know your boundaries, push some boundaries, break some boundaries. Consistency is the key, but proficiency is the doorway. Don't keep doing something that don't make sense, because it might not make sense, or it might not make sense. I'm Spud Brooklyn. This is the A&R Desk. Everyone have a good night. Be blessed.